Hey guys, we are going to get this to work one way or another. So we're going to try it this way and see if that doesn't work. It's the only thing I could think to do, and hopefully it'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and re-tag everybody that wants to be tagged. Okay. Can you see it on my phone?
I don't know how to work on my phone.
Alright, I tagged a good bit of you guys. Hopefully this works. Okay. So I'm going to wait for Natasha to try to come back in again. Thank you guys so much for your patience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is going to be well worth it once we get this video going because as a lot of you know, I escaped human trafficking 23 years ago, and this courageous mom, Natasha, is going to speak about what just happened to her daughter in the past week. So you want to share this video so that we share awareness in what's going on in the world today, and that it's not just overseas, guys. It's happening right here in your backyard. So it's very important that you guys share this video and share the awareness behind it. So I'm going to wait for her to come in because I know it's going to work this time. Thank you so much for watching. Okay.
Has she done a Facebook Live like this before?
Okay. Natasha, here we go. It's got to work. Fingers crossed. Oh my goodness.
Finally.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well that must have been the problem. Hallelujah. Oh,
Finally.
wow. Wow. Okay, good. So here we go. Awesome. Yay. So thank you so much for being patient. And I want to just do a little bit of an introduction. Natasha I reached out to her after I saw her story of what her daughter just went through. And it touched my heart, guys, because a lot of you know that follow me that I escaped human trafficking 23 years ago. And so, therefore, being so long ago, a lot of people say, well, it doesn't exist in this day and age now. Well, it does because Natasha's daughter just experienced something that I'm going to let her go ahead and share with you guys about what happened. As always, if you're watching this video live, please hashtag live. If you're watching this video replay, please hashtag replay. Natasha, I'm so honored to have you on here, girl. And I wanted to have you bigger than that little box up there, but I couldn't get it to work. So I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to turn it all over to you and let you tell your story of what happened.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know it's a hassle getting on there. Well, so basically what happened was this past Saturday night, I allowed my daughter to go over and stay at a friend's house. So kind of a backstory to that is my daughter's 13 years old, and she recently, I just recently decided to bring her into a home study program just because of grades. And, you know, she was struggling, she's kind of having a hard time with middle school drama and such. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring her home. And it's worked out great. She's had a cell phone and social media for some time, but I would slowly take things away, like, you know, Snapchat and Kick, apps like that. I just didn't feel safe with, just because I knew what they could do.
Right.
And she had a couple of incidents recently with her friends, and I thought, you know, we just need a cleansing of social media, of a phone. Like, let's just do this old school. I didn't grow up with a phone, you know, she'll be fine. So it'd been a while, and so she wanted to still have, you know, a sleepover with her friend, and her friend would come over here, and they didn't, you know, live about 7 minutes from here. And I'm like, okay, she wants to go on a Saturday night, no problem. There's never been any problems. The friend's mom and grandma actually lived together, and you know, a nice family. And so I brought her over there, and about 6 or 7 o'clock, and then, you know, come home, do my regular stuff. And about 2 a.m. I get a knock on the door, and it's two police officers and a private investigator and my daughter. And I was in a shock. I was thinking, okay, what did they do? Like, she's never been in trouble like with the police. She's never had any problems like that. And I'm just thinking, what could have happened? And so they come inside and they show me a mugshot of a guy on their phone, and they said, "Do you know who this is?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, do you know where was your daughter supposed to be?" And I said, "Well, she was supposed to be at her friend's house." And so they go into telling me that they pulled over a vehicle with two men in it. One of the men in the mugshot was a prior, um, he's a felon, a convicted felon, for armed robbery. And specifically, they told me, and that they believe that the men had ties to sex trafficking as well as narcotic possession and gang affiliation, and that they didn't believe that my daughter was harmed. They had questioned them for what was 4 hours in the parking lot at the time. They couldn't find anything to arrest them on, seeing that having minors in the cars is not a crime, and so they let them go. And then they brought my daughter home. Um, I didn't sleep the entire night. The next day, I called the other mother. Her daughter was asleep, as mine was, and I waited until 2 p.m. to go over there to talk to the daughter. And prior to that, I had called the police department to try to get a little bit more information. They just told me that they had the girl's cell phone in hand, or they're keeping it for evidence, and they would get back to me when they knew more. When I went to the other girl's house, the mother had told me that she had no idea that that her daughter had been talking to somebody. And when I talked to her daughter, she told me specifically what happened. She said a guy reached out to me on Instagram 3 months ago, and he's been calling. He was, not calling, but messaging me every morning, just being my friend, asking how I'm doing. Um, and so she said she felt she built a trust level with him, basically. So she told my daughter, "Hey, we're gonna go get, coffee. We go get some Dutch Brothers. Let's, like, my friends are picking us up. Let's go." So they walk out the front door, and the guys are sitting there. My daughter was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. They're my friends." So they get in, and 7 minutes, to, I don't know, 15 minutes down the road before they hit the freeway, a cop saw them and pulled them over. So, um, the mom said that they got a hold of her and they had everything taped off for 4 hours. Everybody separated in separate police SUVs. The men were handcuffed, and then they let them all go. So that was pretty much it. That's what happened. And when the police came to my house, they told me that they believe if they wouldn't have pulled them over at that time, that something pretty bad would have happened, considering what they believe that the men had ties to. Seeing that there was nothing to arrest them on at the time, um, that's just where it stands right now.
So it wasn't kidnapping, even though these two big guys had the daughters. They said it wasn't kidnapping because they were talking to them on the phone.
Well, they said, yes, they said that it wasn't kidnapping because the girl was talking to the guy on Instagram, and it was a joint, hey, I'm gonna come pick you up. Let's go get coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's grooming.
It
He
is.
was grooming her,
Mm-hmm.
and I firmly believe that, you know, what would a 21-year-old man want to do with a 12 and a 13-year-old girl, prior convicted felons, that just met one of them online? I mean, there's a purpose, and I'm not naive to that. And then, unfortunately, after with all the training I've done with my daughter and talked to her about everything, she trusted her friend and fell into the peer pressure, and she's a naive 13-year-old and just went just went with it. Her mom was in the house. They live in a big two-story house in a cul-de-sac. She was upstairs, and they just went out the front door. So she
Wow.
didn't even know until she was looking for her daughter, and then she was calling her and calling her. Her daughter wasn't answering, and by the sixth call, a police officer picked up.
Wow.
Yeah.
And here's what I wanted, why I really wanted to have you on here is because I want people to know how real this is. And it's so important. Maybe you're not going to be the cool mom, or maybe, you're going to be invading their privacy. But listen, you have got to do that in order to protect your children. Because this happened to me 23 years ago, and I was groomed for like almost 3 months. This was before technology and all of that, but he would call me every day and he would tell me more and more about how he liked me, and more about giving me this beautiful picture of the life I always wanted. And so at that age is such an awkward age anyway. I was 18 years old and I was a virgin. And I even told him that too. I told him, I was raised in church and I'm saving myself for marriage. And the thing is that these men prey on that. And if you're not watching your social media of your kids, because this was before social media and I, was lured right into it. Nowadays, it's a lot easier for them because social media, all they need is like even a picture of a young kid, and hey, I think you're cute, or meet me at the library or whatever. So you got to make sure that you know what's going on in your kid's life because this is so real. And that's why I applaud you for your courageousness in stepping out and speaking about this and telling parents that. Because some parents may not even know, like, say, Snapchat. What are the dangers of Snapchat?
Yeah, well, I mean, the dangers of Snapchat are that the pictures immediately go erased, and it's the same with Kick Messenger as well. The messages are immediately, erased. And so those were apps that at the time I just said, my daughter can't have these anymore. Like, there's no reason for it. I mean, and now it's to the point where she doesn't have a phone. We figured it out when we were young. It'll be all right. We'll figure out a way around it, or finding parental controls later on if I ever do allow her to. But in this case, it came down to, upon questioning my daughter very, thoroughly, she was like, I never even talked to them. I didn't even know who they were. And so she trusted her friend,
Mm-hmm.
and this was in her friend's phone that now the police officers have for evidence. And so it's not only about your kid not having, social media, it's about their friends too, having to build a really close, trusting relationship with these kids, and they don't always want to tell you everything. I didn't want to tell my parents everything when I was a kid, and I understand that, but at this point, it's a matter of life and death, and that's what I told my daughter. I'm like, I know you want to be around your friends, and we'll eventually are going to allow that, but if they have their phones, like right now, that's a no. To
Yeah.
just spend time, if you're going to spend time, you're going to spend time together. We're going to take you to the movies, or we're going to play a board game or something. You don't need to sit together on a device reaching out to billions of people
Yeah.
who, in return, a lot of them are predators behind a screen.
Right, exactly. In so many cases. And
Hmm.
even, trusting your children. I do a lot of breakthrough prayers with adults that went through things as children that they've never told anybody about. And, a lot of times it's a friend's house that they're at and something happens to them. So you have to just be so careful with your children and protecting them from the evilness that exists outside the world. And like I said, if that makes you an uncool mom, well, then you're like the coolest mom ever because you're protecting your children. And that's what's most important because we don't, as a kid, I never thought that anything bad happened to people. You just don't. You're so innocent. And I was innocent. But then when you get into the real world and you see what evilness lies out there, and, it's like you have to protect your kids and you have to make sure that they know that you're doing that because you love them and not because you're just not allowing them to be like all the other kids are. My sister actually, she's not on here right now, but my nephew is 18 and he doesn't have a cell phone. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, he doesn't have a cell phone. Well, he doesn't want one because, like you're talking about, they do so many things at home together as a family that he doesn't even know what he's really missing with the cell phone. So I think that it's important that this message gets out there so that parents do know what's on their kids' phones and who their kids are talking to, especially if you allow them to have their cell phones at night or overnight when you're sleeping. Who are they talking to? And that gives me chills because that's what I was doing. I was talking to this guy all hours of the night. I was falling in love with him, and then he was grooming me to sell me. And
Wow.
that it's
Yeah.
so real, and that's why people need to know that. It's so important.
Yeah. When I was talking to you before, you were talking about how it's almost like a brainwashing process, and I believe that. I mean, it's in young girls, they're not developed all the way, and you know, looking for attention or whatever it may be. And kind of the social media norm is, posting all these pretty photos or trying to fit in with the crowd. And I mean, it's unfortunately, it's just so prevalent nowadays. Your kid is going to be the odd one out if you don't let them have a cell phone.
Right. But in all honesty, it protects them. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what's important. And it's no different than, and I know, a lot of people are going to be like, but it's no different than you go into a zoo and you take your kid and you put them in the lion's den and you're just,
Hmm.
taking the chance of that lion getting them. That's how I feel like parents protect their kids against these cell phones, because these predators are out there and they're waiting, they're scrolling, they're looking. And like you said, the guy that talked to me, I mean, I never thought this guy would ever hurt me in a million years. I was, and like you said, brainwashed. I believed everything he said. So if somebody came to me and said, do you think that he's going to cause harm to you? I would have been like, absolutely not. He's one of, I'm in love with him. I'm going to marry him, and he's going to take me away and have a big house with horses, and that wasn't the case. And so, teenagers, especially, y'all need to know this, watch this, because it's very important that you know that you're at that age where you feel awkward. I mean, let's just be honest. It's a hard age to be at. You want to fit in, you want to be like everybody else, but you've got to know you've got to protect yourself, because evil does exist, and there's people that go missing every single day. Human trafficking is a $150 billion business. So you've got to know that when you say, well, that won't happen to me, well, you don't know that. And parents
Yeah.
got to protect your kids. You've got to, I mean, I bet if a lot of parents took their kids' cell phones right now and looked through them, they would probably be in shock at what is on there. They
Yeah.
probably would be. And I didn't even know about Kick. So Kick's another one. There's so many of them, different apps that your kids can be on and you don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that my fiance had talked to me about, he's like, if they're going to have phones, there's no reason for them to have a phone after 10 o'clock at night because nothing good happens after that time. And I'm
Mm,
like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. That nothing good does happen. I mean, even as adults, sometimes you'll just get on there and scroll and waste your time, when you could be doing something else or going to bed earlier to get up earlier.
right.
Um, but I never would have thought that it would have happened to us. I never in a million years would have thought, you know, I mean, yes, I'm, not naive in that sense to where I'm very, aware of our surroundings everywhere we go and on top of talking to my girls about things, but I just never would have thought, oh my gosh, she's, she really could have been sold. Like we really could have not been, I really could have been, it could have been a different story. I could be searching for her right now and our entire lives flipped upside down and inside out. I mean, that's the worst fear of a mother is, you know, your child missing and you having no idea. And so, I mean, I can only imagine how your parents felt with your story.
Yeah, and my mom, she didn't know my real story of what happened to me until I wrote my book, because that's
Oh wow.
shame and guilt I felt. I didn't tell anybody because
Hmm.
so embarrassed of the fact of what I had been through that I didn't think anybody would understand that. So I lived in fear for so many years, hiding out because I was afraid of what people would think or if people would judge me. And for about 10 years of my life, I was concerned with these people finding me because I told him everything about me. And let that be another big lesson, anyone watching this. Stop telling all your business. Stop telling where your parents work. Stop telling all these little details that you give them, they're going to turn around and use against you, because that's what happened to me. I know where your dad works. I can go and kill him. You don't want to do what I want,
Wow.
so it's very important that you guys know. Also, pictures. You send pictures, they screenshot that, they tell you, you do what I tell you to do, or your pictures are going all over the internet. I mean, there's so many ways that they're using these different things against you. So you have to protect yourself and protect your children against this evil in this world out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think if parents are going to allow their kids to have any devices, they has to have extreme parental controls. I mean, just extreme.
And like you said, after 10 o'clock, hand it over. Do not allow them
Yeah.
to be in a bedroom at night with their cell phone. Do not, because that's where, like you said, they're scrolling or they're Instagramming or they're talking to people they should be talking to. And that's where bad things happen. So I'm so
Yeah.
honored and blessed to have you on here today. I'm so thankful that your daughter is okay and her friend is okay. And I applaud you for your courageousness in coming on here and telling your story. And, I'm going to send you a book. And anybody else that would like my book, it's jodypar.com, JODYPAAR. Boss does not stand for what you think it stands for. It actually stands for Breakout Silent Soldier because it took me a long time, 23 years, to break my story. And that happened last year when I wrote my book. So I want to be able to spread awareness and help as many people as I can help. And Natasha, I applaud you. I'm so glad I got to meet you. And just keep telling your story, girl. Keep on, because you never know whose life you're going to save. You never know. And parents, look to these phones, see what's going on with your kids, especially if your kids are up all night long on the phone. You need to check that out and see what's going on, because it's sad to know that these kids were in the back of this van and yet it's not considered kidnapping.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and it really it means so much. I know that it must have been really hard for you to come forward with your situation. Just with our situation, it was a shameful, experience, and I was very fearful that I knew that people needed to know about it and needed to know the realities of the world that we live in, and the realities of what we need to talk to our kids about, regardless of how much it hurts, or other kids, or just anybody, really.
Right, exactly. And just, share, because the internet can be used for bad or it can be used for good. And we can spread awareness, and just your story has exploded so much and has gotten so, and probably a lot of those parents never even thought for a second that this was existing outside of out in the world. So, Pat said, my niece's cousin killed herself because she was being blackmailed about pictures. That's horrible. I mean, it happens. And that's what you gotta know, people. This is real, and these things happen. And so, um, I'm sorry, Pat, that happened to your niece. It breaks my heart. Um,
Yeah.
and that is why I wrote my book. But it was God that told me it was time, because I would have not come out on my own. There is no way I would have done that. But when God told me it is time for you to come out and tell your story so you can help other people, that's when I knew that I had to do what I had to do. So together we can
Oh,
all together. So thank you so much
yeah.
on here. And thank you guys, everybody that's watching and being patient, because it took a while to get going. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Natasha, so much. And
Yeah, and I appreciate you too. Thank you very much.
you are so welcome. All right, guys, this is Fearless Friday. Thank you so much for watching. Share this video. This video could save a life. You never, ever know. And this just happened to Natasha's daughter this past week, guys. So it's so real. And you need to know what your kids are doing. Love you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.